All right, we are back, and I'm going to bring Crayle in and turn it over to her. Hello, Phoenix sister.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you are loud and clear. Are you ready to go for your indie authors?
I think so. Let me look down at our green room here where they have been waiting so patiently.
Yes, thank you all.
Well, if my scroll bar was working, sorry, I'm just using my trackpad. It looks like I have Sara and Cody and Robin and Clyde. Everybody's here.
Awesome. I'm going to drop myself out and let you introduce yourself.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Crayle Vanest. I'm one half of Phoenix Sisters Cosplay. This is our host of panelists here. Let me get Sara added in. Trackpad misbehaving. Okay, so here we go. All right, this panel is about indie authors, their writing processes, some trends in fiction. Hi, Samantha, and general writing fun, I hope, or writing stress, because sometimes it's really stressful too. I am manning this panel because I'm a freelance editor as one of my 8 million jobs. And I have to tell you, it's a real privilege to be talking to these 4 authors today. I know so many talented people, and even the one of you, the one that I don't know personally, like I can already tell you're an incredibly talented writer. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this virtual super friend square off of Clyde's face. How do we do that? Sorry, Clyde, I had to hide you from the world. You're too beautiful.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. And now I'm frozen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click top to bottom from where it is on the right there. And you can tell me your name, what genre you write, and what books you've written. Clyde, you are at the top.
Okay. I write in the new pulp genre with a minor in horror and anthology, inclusion, short story, and pulp reality #1. And this has just come out in the last month, pulp reality #2. I also have a story there with an original character I created called B-Man.
Really?
She wasn't expecting me to get done that fast.
She abandoned us.
This is all from this is from www.stormgatepress.com, both, as well as The Adventures of Captain Hawkland, which is our editor, and he's had this company for quite a long time. This is the first time we've done a pulp reality anthology, ongoing stories like this. So it's kind of new for him, but he's been doing this for a long time. So if you go to www.stormgatepress.com, you'll find other books also about the and are in the new pulp genre, and along with some horror and some other genres.
All right, Clyde, you did cut out a little bit when you were mentioning your website or the website we can find your books. So when this is over, if you just want to make sure to type that into the comments so that we can all find you, definitely want to make sure that all of our authors take this opportunity to promote themselves. I don't think any of you guys are working with like major publishing houses that have like book trailers rolling out for you, running those Google banner ads or anything. So like treat this like an ad, brag on yourselves. You all deserve it. And I believe it is Robin's turn now.
Hi, I'm Robin Burks, and I kind of write cross-genre stuff, but it's mostly like sci-fi, dark fantasy, horror, I guess. I kind of just throw it all together and see what comes out. Actually, I only have one of my books on hand, but Crayle's got them all. So, the first book that I wrote was Zeus Inc., and there are 2 other books in that series, and I started working on a 4th. And my 4th book is Madam Vampire, which is basically a traditional vampire horror story. I am with a small publisher called Crossroad Press. Not like a big house or anything, but I'm very, very happy with my publisher, and you can actually find them online as well as me. My website is robin-burks.com, and I'm all over social media, and you can find my social media links on my website too. And that's it. Oh, and my first book is actually on Audible now. So if you like to listen to your books, you can listen to Zeus Inc. on Audible. And the narrator is fantastic. I love her.
Ah, that is so great. That is awesome. Cody, you are on deck.
Hello, my name is Cody J. Flores. I want to consider myself kind of like a multi-genre author. Most of my short stories kind of stray away from the actual book series that I am writing. My short stories are kind of like horror and thrillers. The book series I'm working on, starting off with the first book, One Short Night, is a near future action cyberpunk kind of a story with a lot of humor, and oftentimes dark humor. So if you like a lot of action, you like a lot of violence, you like a lot of jokes, my stuff is good for you. I also got the second book, Edge of Rain, followed by my recent third book, The Rise of Case, which I am currently working on my fourth book, which should be the whole climactic ending, fills everything together. But if you need to, if you do find me interesting or whatever, you can follow me on like Facebook or Instagram. I don't have a website, but I do have a link to all of my stuff, which is right here. Oh, hang on.
Hey, uncover the first letter.
There we go. So linktree/cody.j.flores. If you guys want to get a picture or screenshot this, that's perfectly fine. But you can find my Facebook, my Instagram, my Minds. I even have a YouTube channel where I go through my collection of movies and I do review on the movies that I own.
Yeah, I only have your first book on ebook, but I did hold up your second too. I'm super biased for anything I say about Cody's writing because I actually edited one of his books. So, man, The Rise of Case, this one just seems a little better than the others, don't you think, Cody?
I think so. I think so. And a lot of people who like female-led books, it was kind of the scariest book for me to write. So I'm like, oh man, I'm like a dude author. How do I write like engaging female characters?
I would have told you if I thought you were doing it badly. So
yes. So thankfully, a lot of the good reviews are like, yeah, no, these actually sound like human female characters. I'm like, oh, thank God.
All right, Sara, it is your turn.
Hey, okay, I'm Sara Freites. I'm a YA author. My first book, Rise of Midnight. I'm glad I got a copy because I was like wondering if everybody else was going to bring theirs. But this is my first book, and I'm working on the sequel, Rise of Daybreak. It's a vampire/demon young adult book about a girl that finds out she's a reincarnation of a vampire leader from hundreds of years ago. I'm also working on 3 other non-related fiction books, so it's definitely a work in progress. I don't know what I'm doing. I just put it out there and hope people like it. And I'm not good with social media. I use Instagram. It's Sapphire Art on Instagram. It's spelled wrong. It's my initials, SAF Fire IRE _art on Instagram, and the same as Facebook. I have my Facebook, and most of my stuff is cosplay, but I've been trying to put a lot more of my art and my book and my writing and my painting and stuff on there too. But yeah, those are, I don't have a website yet. I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure that out. I think I'm going to use Wix.com, but I'll let you guys know when I figure it out. So. But that's me.
All right. So I think you guys pretty much covered my first question that I wrote down just in case you didn't remember all the different things that I asked you to say all at once, which was what genre do you write? But if you guys could expand on that a little bit, and just whoever wants to go first, I guess go first. I don't want to pick on the same person over and over again. But why were you drawn to the genre that you were drawn to when you started writing, or the couple of genres? Because of, especially Robin, I know you've got, I think Madam Vampire and Zeus Inc. feel very different to me, but who's going first?
I guess since you mentioned me,
That works.
I just basically, I want to write what I like to read. And I read a lot of different genres, and that's why Zeus Inc. is part detective novel, part dark fantasy, part futuristic, part whatever else it is, because those are the stories that I like to read. And for some reason, that series, I just threw them all into one book. But like with Madame Vampire, I am like a massive Anne Rice fan. I love the worlds that she's built. I love just the way that she created vampires and really made you see the humanity in them. And I've always wanted to write something kind of long in that vein, but I never had an idea that I thought was my own, because I didn't want to rip off of her. And then one day I'm watching Doctor Who, and it comes to me that I want to write Madame de Pompadour as a vampire. And that literally is how that story started. And then I started researching the character, and there's all this great history. And she was like one of the first really big feminists of her time. And I fell in love with her just as a historical character. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to write this. And that's why that story kind of went in a completely different direction. But again, it was kind of a book that I wanted to read. That's it.
Who's next?
All right, well, I guess I'll go. I guess for me, especially with my books, it's kind of like a sci-fi kind of near future kind of thing, is because I'm drawn really to how fast our technology is growing, and kind of the idea of what will happen in the future. Like, what will society be? Will it be more of a utopia? Will it be more of a dystopian? Nobody really knows, but I kind of like the whole cyberpunk aesthetic, because the genre itself, it can go either way. And that's what I really kind of love about the genre itself. As for my short stories, I just kind of like a little bit of a suspense, a little bit of thrillers. I do kind of like those movies. For horror, not really big on horror, so I kind of stay a little bit to the back burner for it. But it's something I definitely want to get into in the future, because I do like horror movies.
Right, guys, are we flipping a coin? All right, Clyde's going to go.
I'll go. Mine was a question of opportunity. I reviewed or Comic Book Spectrum, which is a Facebook and YouTube show every week, in the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. And I've been doing that for, I guess, close to 4 years. And not the show, just as a comic reviewer. The show is a new version of that. But I wanted to write comics. And I am an older person. I had a career, and writing was always there, and I wanted to try it when it felt right. When I retired, finally, I'm like, man, it's really late to start. And, you know, there's that blank page, a blank screen, and a keyboard and a pen, and I've got to do it. So I submitted some stuff to a company, little indie company that was doing copyright free characters. They're in the domain. Some of the older characters I liked, and a lot of this was back in the 60s. So I thought, okay, I can write a nostalgic kind of tribute. And I submitted them, and they liked them, and they took them, and they wanted them, and they put them out, and they're still holding on to them. So I got Brian K. Morris of Rising Tide Publications and said, what's the deal? Because you know, some of the people, he goes, they have a lot of material. Okay. Well, what else have we got? You can probably do your authors or anything. We had a group, recently out called the anthology series. You think of things like Indiana Jones, Rocketeer, The Shadow, those kind of characters. And his was a Doc Saga character. He says, go ahead and send me a pitch. Which you might Doc Saga character going to be, what one you would like to write. So I sent him a pitch, and he accepted it. I submitted it, and he goes, okay, you need to go to Charles Millhouse over here. He's putting together a pulp anthology. I think, not with my character, but you could come up with an original character. And so I kind of took my love of older superheroes and melded it with pulp, and influences like the James or the Liefeld adaptations of his comic strip, The Phantom, and a few ideas like that, and submitted stuff to Charles. I gave him a pitch, which he accepted, and I got in the first issue of Reality, my first B-Man story. And from there, it won an award. I became part of an award-winning team right from the start. It doesn't really happen that way. There's a lot of folks that have written the new pulp genre for a long time. So I'm just lucky to be part of it. That's how I landed on me. It was my first choice, but it seems to have found a home there, and I really like it. And I'm learning a lot from the people I'm working with.
Yeah, I do not have a physical copy of yours to hold up, but here is the cover of issue number 1 of Pulp Reality. There you go. Yep, you've got it. And again, you did cut out volume 2, which I don't have at all yet. I need to add that to my wish list. But you did cut out again a little bit there. So anything that you feel like typing in at the end of this, Clyde, any answer or whatever, so we can get your full story. I just want to make sure that everybody knows what you're about. And Sara, that leaves you. Why were you drawn to YA sort of vampire? Like, I swear I was listening, but I don't want to sum you up incorrectly. Like, why is that the genre you were drawn to write?
I kind of take a page from Robin's books, so to speak. Anne Rice was a really big inspiration. And also, a lot of anime. Inuyasha was my big inspiration. Like Robin said, I like to write what I want to read, and I feel like I'm really drawn to YA books and the genre. And vampires, I don't know. I guess I kind of have a dark sense of not necessarily humor, but I don't know. I was always kind of drawn to that underworld type stuff, and so it really I don't know how to explain it. I feel like there was just a story burning in my heart, and I needed to put it down on paper. So it was, and I think like modern anime, there's always story going, and like in my head, like after I would read something, I'm like, oh man, I would be cool if this happened, or if I made up a character. What if I made a character, whatever. So as a young kid, I always kind of grew up thinking, oh, when the Animorphs series came out, that was actually another inspiration for my books, is the Animorphs by K.A. Applegate. I don't know if you guys read that long ago, but
I had
another one of my big inspirations. I read all the series. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to create it. Did you really? Yes, I love that series to death. And even when the show came out, it wasn't that good. I didn't care. I was like, yes, Animorphs. But so yeah, I had several different inspirations that kind of slowly melded into one little bubble there. But
yeah, I'm really really happy to have a YA author on this panel here, because I think like YA novels for a lot of us are like a huge inspiration, even if we wouldn't think about to list it in like the top of our like reference list or influences, like YA novels, I think really shamelessly just write like straight out of the character's mind a lot of the times. And I'm not saying that it's bad that a lot of writers writing for an older audience have a more detached sort of top-down view of their characters sometimes. But sometimes it's just a really big relief to just be like, I'm in this character's head. And it doesn't really matter that they're just thinking about who their high school crush is or like how mad their parents are going to be. Like, it's real. It's in my hands, So, and again, like there are lots of other benefits to lots of other types of writing too. But I think some people sometimes think that they've outgrown a YA novel, and if you feel that way, I kind of recommend you pick one up again and try it again. I can see Robin down there.
I read a lot of YA.
Yeah. All right. My next question, unless we have questions from the audience here. Oh, we do have here. Sam says that Inuyasha inspired her too, and Micah says hi. My next question was, we already covered what your influences and sources of inspiration were for everybody, didn't we? Does anybody want to elaborate on that some more?
I can.
Oh, wow. Cody can talk some more, huh?
Oh yeah, just focus all the spotlight on me.
Hold on. There's a
do what?
feature for that.
Oh, yeah. There you go. I guess a lot of influences for me kind of really came from movies. Writing in the cyberpunk genre, you can't go without saying that Blade Runner was not an inspiration. Anybody who writes sci-fi is going to have Blade Runner as an inspiration. But you have that, Escape from New York. It's a really good one. Along with the humor from Big Trouble in Little China. I really think that the humor in that movie was way ahead of its time, and it doesn't get the credit that it should. So watch Big Trouble in Little China. But then also video games, such as the Deus Ex series, really kind of does I did get like a lot of influence from it. And you could definitely tell that it was influenced by the board game Cyberpunk and, William Gibson and all those kind of authors and stuff like that. But pretty much those are my influences that I got that wanted me to actually start writing this series.
Escape from New York inspired a video game that inspired a movie that I have a tattoo based on my shoulder here. There's a moment in it where the main character tells another character, have an apple and a gun, don't talk to strangers.
Yes, I love Lockout. It is so good. That's another funny movie.
Oh, yeah, no, it's so great. It's just so punchy and dialogue driven. Anyway, this isn't a movie review show. This is a show to focus on these wonderful authors.
Yes, my bad for going off topic.
No, that's okay. Let me get Cody's giant face out of here. You guys, I'm teasing Cody because we're friends. Swear I'm not actually a mean person. Okay. What advice do you have for new authors? I'm gonna go just clockwise and start with Clyde, and we'll just go around that way. Clyde?
Okay, well, I'm an older person, but I am kind of a new author myself because I've always written. When I was a kid, I found a portal in my backyard that was books. Because when life wasn't so great, comic books or paperback books or hardback books, magazines, Famous Monsters of Filmland, those were a great escape. And even when I was little like that, I wanted to write. I wanted to be able to conjure that magic. I didn't even know how to write yet, and I was trying to write down thoughts and stories. And then you get older, and you have some teachers in school that inspire you. But you get older, and you find out how hard writing is if you're going to make a living out of it, and that you don't make a lot of money from it normally. You can be a writer your whole life, and you're not going to be a Stephen King. You're not going to get movie deals. You're just going to be a writer writing, and it's not always easy. And then you get married and you have a family, and you're like, I can't support that on what a writer would make, even like a reporter or anything. So you find things like mushes and muds and moos, and you do online gaming that's text driven. I spent summers where I would just do the for a mush, they would describe the rooms. So I would do all of Gotham City. Just every room in Gotham City, I would describe it and go look at comic books as a reference. So I've always written, but it was never something that I thought I could make money at. And then I retired, and I thought, I still want to write. I can still run games, and I can write modules for D&D and stuff like I've done for my local group, but I want to try to do something bigger. So don't ever give up. 58 years old before I was published for the first time, officially. I've written my whole life. So it's never too late to try. And if you've gone through that whole process of, I can't make a living doing this, okay, that's fine. And you still go back and you still write, and you go to seminar, and you tune in on a Saturday afternoon to see a bunch of writers talking about writing, then you probably need to write, because it is stuck in your psyche to be a writer. Never deny that. If it's just something that you do for fun, fine. But if you don't if you find that you still want to be a writer, despite knowing all that you know about how hard it is, and it is hard, it is not an easy thing sometimes, go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter if you're 58, if you're 108, if you are 28, don't be afraid. Also, look for places like, I've mentioned the Rising Tide Broadcast Network and Rising Tide Publications. Brian K. Morris is the person I went to because he's an indie author, and his Rising Tide group are professional creatives helping other creatives up their business or increase their business. They charge nothing for it. Do not get in with a group that's going to soak you for money, saying, we'll make you a top published author by you giving us $20,000, we'll make all your dreams come true. Please don't do that. You don't have to. There are folks out there that can lead you along the path and give you contacts and opportunities that don't cost you anything to get started. And then you can go the way you want to from there. I'm working on a novel. Yes, love Brian. I'm working on a novel, and when I'm done with it, I know enough people that have self-published, I can go to any of them and say, hey, how can I do this? What's the best way? Or by having contacts with Rising Tide and Stormgate Press, I can offer it to them if it's something that they think that they could use. So you network. You make contacts. You don't spend a whole lot of money doing it. You read up on the genre that you're interested in so that you can address issues in it, get the inspiration for things that, as Robin said, write what you want to read. Like I love pulp, but nobody has very many powers in pulp. The shadow can meld into shadows and play with your mind a little bit. Justice Incorporated was the Avenger could change his face a little bit. They're not really superheroes. My B-Man can take the powers and abilities of any B-movie character that's ever played in this one movie theater. He can become Gumshoe Gherkin, a 1940s. My stories are set in 1966, but he can become these different characters. He can become Captain Stratosphere, who actually has a jetpack. And when he becomes that character, it works in the real world way that it would only do cinematically where the characters appeared before. So come up with an idea, something different like that has not been done with pulp, but is very pulpish in my case. And don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's a lot to gain. Networking, if nothing else, I have made a lot of friends online and through conventions where I went and talked to them about their writing. But your local library is another good source. One of the places that helped me along, it's a college creative writing group. Hey, Brian! It's a college creative writing group, and it's free. But we meet once a month. We read a book, we discuss the book, and then we share our writing. Those sorts of things. If you don't have one at your local library, start one. I'll bet there'll be some other people that'll come and join you with it. So those are my suggestions to anybody starting out.
All right. And to people asking questions in the comments, we are going to get to you after we get around this way. We love that participation. We are not forgetting about you. Robin, your advice for new writers.
Clyde covered just about everything. It's like you didn't leave me anything left to say.
I'm sorry, Robin.
Especially what you said about networking. I mean, when I was starting out, Brian was one of the people that I talked to along with other writers. I would go to conventions and go to the writers' tables and just strike up conversations because that's really how I learned. And I mean, even like getting on social media, like Twitter, I would get tweets from Neil Gaiman giving me tips on how to write, which is incredible. I mean, even like guys like that are willing to talk to you and give you advice, which is crazy. But I think one of my, you were talking about there's nothing to be afraid of. And I think that really does stop a lot of people. So the most important thing that you need to do if you want to be a writer is to sit down and write. Just whatever you want to write, just sit down and write it, get it down on paper or on your computer. And I keep mentioning Neil Gaiman. He's my favorite writer. He has something called the rules of writing, which I tell everybody to Google, because the number one rule is to write. And the second one is like put another word after the other word and to keep writing it. And it basically goes through, okay, finish what you're writing it, put it away for a while, don't look at it. And then you can go back and rewrite or whatever. But yeah, really the hardest thing is to just start, to get started, to start writing those first words. Because even now, right before I sit down for like a writing sprint or a writing session, there is a terror that happens where I'm just like, nothing is going to happen. No words are going to fall onto the page. I'm just going to freeze up and have no ideas. Every writer, I think, probably experiences that. You just have to conquer that and just write. So that's really all I have to add to everything that Clyde had to say.
All right, Sara, your turn.
And I'm going to bounce off of Robin with the don't give up part. I think I find myself having a lot of writer's blocks. And even when I do, if I'm working on one project, I'll stop myself and say, okay, well, if I can't write on this project, let me write on my other project. So even if I'm not writing on the one that I'm there, if I come to a wall and I'm like, I have to away from this, but I'll still continue to write. I'll start working on my other projects, or I'll write poetry that has nothing to do with anything that I'm writing, or I'll write a screenplay. Like I'll just anything to just keep the creative juices, so to speak, going. Because if I stop, then I stop. I'm probably not going to pick it up again, because my brain just doesn't work that way. I don't continue myself on something, I won't go back to it. So I know that's how my personality is. So if I stop on something, I will immediately try to find something else to put my energy into. And sometimes it's not even writing. Sometimes it's acting or drawing or cosplay, or just something to get my energy. And it's funny because sometimes I'll come back full circle, like, oh, I did all that stuff. Now I'm back at the script that I was writing. Oh, wow, now I have all these ideas. Let me start writing this down. So I think that's good, just to stay creative. And even if it's not writing, in anything that you do, just it helps with your other, like whatever path, artist path that you're on, even if it's not just writing. It helps you to kind of get those juices going for your writing too. I think for me, it does.
All right, Cody, it is your turn, and thank you for those answers, Sara. That really appeals to my ADHD to think, okay, like apply that energy that you have to something else, because like that's a problem I have, is like if I don't use the energy, like I start to get like, I feel bad, so I didn't even think about that. If you're working on the one project with writing, like write something else for a while then. But Cody, it is your turn.
All right, if you are an aspiring author, things like that, all you have to do is, if there is a subject that you think would be good and it sounds good to you, definitely start writing it. Write it down, like Robin said, on paper. You could use your phone. It doesn't really matter. You could carve it into, the porch if you wanted to. Just stick with the idea that you like. Don't think about if anybody else is going to read it. Don't think about, is it going to sell, a bunch of copies. Got to focus on what makes you happy. And if you do get stuck, man, just try to write even so much, just a sentence a day. It could be 3 words. Just write a sentence, kind of keep the flow going, and don't worry about the editing the first time around. All right, if you don't know how to actually do captions of what people are saying in books, just write it like a script, man. Have a name, semicolon, what they said, and just keep going. You can work on that later. But if you do want to write, just make sure you have the passion for it. Don't look and then see what sells the most, because there's no passion in that. You're just trying to get trying to get rich quick. Don't do that. Actually have your passion for it. Work on a story, no matter how outlandish it is. There's Carlton Mellick III, and he writes some off-the-wall books. I am a fan of his just because it's like, oh, that's what the book's about. Okay. Well, this is going to be a fun ride. All right. It doesn't matter how off the wall it is. It doesn't matter how grounded it is. As long as it's something that you want to write, go for it. Don't stop. Believe me, like Clyde had said, he'd written just about all his life. I did the same thing. It wasn't until I was 28 to where I decided to finally sit down and I'm like, I'm going to write this book. It's going to happen. I'm finally going to do it. It's one of my life dreams. I'm going to accomplish it. And I did. And then I was like, I'm going to write a sequel. I'm going to write a sequel. Holy crap, I'm actually going to have a series. This is exciting. But all it takes is just a little bit of time just a little bit of motivation and belief in yourself. Don't pay attention to everything else out there. Don't see what other authors are doing and they're selling and stuff like that. Don't worry about that. Just focus on you and your story and what makes you happy.
All right. Now, looking at this backlog of questions here, Brandy asked, do you just write or do you have to fit it in with a day job? How does that work for you? We'll go the other direction. Cody, your turn again.
All right. Really, when I wrote my first 2 books, yes, I was having to write like every chance I had on break, or if I had like a few minutes to walk around at work, I'd be just sitting there just typing it up. I'd have to wait till I got home and I'd work on it a little bit more. You just have to work on it little by little by little. So yes, there are some people out there that is their full-time job. That is what they do. And for other of us, for some of us, we actually, we have to try to earn a living and everything and try to cram it in when we can. And there may be days you go without writing just because you're so busy with work. But if you can find a few minutes, like I said, write a couple of sentences, you're good to go. Just keep up that energy, keep going.
Right. Sarah, it looked like you were frozen for a second there, but if you've come back to us, it is your turn, or if you're still having a technical issue, we can swing back around. Can you hear us, Sarah?
She's on mute.
She is on mute, and also, all right, Sarah, I'm just seeing your head move a little bit like this, so I'm going to come back to you, okay? If you have to close the program and open it again, I'll let you back in. Robin?
Yeah, I actually just started. Okay, so my day job is as a writer. Right now, I am a Disney blogger and I write for 2 sites and I do that full time. So I've actually been struggling to write 8 hours a day and then come back and write some fiction. And the job is a lot more demanding than you would ever imagine. And so I have been struggling a little bit to find time, but I'm always like writing down ideas or telling Google Home to take a note because something comes to me, I'm finally kind of getting to the point where I have started to, eke out a little time every day for myself to work on ideas and things. And I'm finally getting to the point where I'm like, okay, here's when I can set some time aside to write at night. So that's where I actually am right now. I'm starting to work on the 4th novel in the Alex Squishstone series. But yeah, you have to just kind of take the time where you can. And sometimes the ideas come to you in the middle of the night. I keep a notepad by my bed just in case I wake up from some crazy dream. And I'm like, ooh, that would be really good in the novel. So you just have to kind of eke it in when you can. One thing I found that was really helpful is I like doing National Novel Writing Month, because it makes me set a schedule every single day. It's like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to write 2,000 words. And then at the end of the month, I've got 50,000 words or more. And that really helps too. It's just, it's hard. But if you really want to write the story, and sometimes that story will literally just sit inside your mind until you have to write it. It's going to come out one way or the other, even if it might take you some time.
Yeah, and I think I know what you mean about how could you write for 8 hours and then write again. As an editor, sometimes I read for 8 hours, and then I've had this idea for a novel rolling around my head for 6 years, and I'm like, I can't read for 8 hours and then write. Like, what if I accidentally steal an idea? Or it does get difficult, but like, I admire you guys for really taking the time and getting it out there. Clyde, you mentioned earlier that you retired, right?
Yeah. But, some of what Cody was saying, I could remember, okay, I got to work for 8 hours, but I'm going to game when I'm done, or I'm going to prepare I'm running the game. So I got to sit and, I had a desk job. So there were times when there was nothing going on. It's one of those jobs where you sit and you wait for a phone call to come in. And until it does, you got to keep awake. So I would sit there and write notes about my game module, what I was going to run the guys through, and what my gaming group was going to face, or I would sit and write a fan fiction. And so I was doing the same thing that he was doing. It's like I'm working and I'm also writing. It was harder when I retired because it's like, Ooh, convention. I want to go to that. Oh, shiny stuff. I want to watch that. I want to read these comics. I had to read. I had to become. More self-disciplined again. And actually, the pandemic helped with that. You're stuck. You're home now. Now that the writing muse fully has your attention, schedule yourself through the day so you can add to your projects. That was tough, but I do have a benefit now. I'm retired. I don't have an 8-hour job, and I can split up my day. I can write until 3 o'clock in the morning if the muse is on my back going, right, and I can stop if it's one of those days. I started a thing called Radiate Positive Vibes during the pandemic. So every day I've got this little blog post that I put on Facebook. You can find it at Radiating Positive Vibes with author Clyde Hall on Facebook. That's my main site. And every day it just looks at something positive. It doesn't have to be goody news. It can just be, things like new shows coming out. We saw the first WandaVision, Robin, and we love that show. So I did a blog post about this is Marvel's back, and it's not as you would expect. It's better. That kind of stuff keeps you, little daily things like that keeps you going. Yes, it keeps you going so that you can keep the one word coming after the other, like Neil Gaiman says.
All right, Sara, do you have a day job? And if so, how do you work your writing into it?
Yes, I do. I work 8 to 5. So this sounds really weird, but when I'm not working, I am daydreaming. And what I mean by daydreaming is I'm thinking about what I'm going to write. So at work, when I get my breaks or I get my lunchtime, I'm kind of crunching in my mind, like I'm thinking about what I'm writing, and I'm like, all right, and music helps me to write too. So, and usually music without lyrics. So a lot of kind of like the BDM or the instrumental type music and stuff. And I can picture a scene and I'll put my characters in it, and then whatever the song's doing, sometimes the characters will I'm just crazy. But so that's what, when I'm not working, on my lunch break or something, I'll do that, listen to music and eat, and then I go home and like, oh man, I heard this good song today and helped me think of a good scene to write with my characters that fitting into my story that I kind of had a brain block on. But yeah, and then I get home, I'm literally on my laptop. I get home and I put my little laptop up and I just start writing and as best I can. And if I'm not writing, I really try to just keep, whatever project I'm working on, I try to keep it in mind and in anything that I'm doing, which sounds kind of weird. So I'm probably kind of crazy, but I always try to associate what I'm writing with whatever's going on in my life. Like I'm like, hey, and in my book, a lot of stuff happened to me in my book that happened to me in real life, but, kind of fiction and way cooler. So I'm always kind of looking out for that too. So, but yeah, I do work 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, and I just try to write as much as I can whenever I find the time, at weekends and after work. So I jump in.
Yeah. All right. I'm just sorry, I'm rushing you guys, but I want to get to this amazing audience participation here. Samantha wants to know, if it will show up on screen, what is your experience with research and organizing your thoughts when writing? We'll go the other way around. Let's start at a different point. We'll go Robin and then counterclockwise.
Organizing. Okay, so I have so many notebooks in my house. So as far as organizing goes, I don't even think I'm the person to talk to. I have notebooks in every room in my house, and there's a pen nearby if a cat hasn't stolen it. It's horrible. And I try to be a little organized, like online, and like when I actually start to write, I use a program called Scrivener, which kind of helps me keep scenes and things organized. But I am not a very organized writer at all. I will literally just collect all my notebooks when I start and just start looking through them for whatever idea sounds good at the time, and then just start throwing it onto the page.
I know how you feel. This notebook was my notebook for the convention, and it got apple juice all over it last week. So I'm
like
just
four
like,
on my desk.
try it out.
There are 2 in my bedroom, and I know there's a couple more in my living room. So yeah, there are notebooks everywhere.
All right, Sara, what is your experience with research and trying to organize your thoughts when you write?
Oh my God, exactly the same. I'm very good with content, so whatever comes to mind, I'll have a little
like 2-inch like little sticky notepad to write on at work or somewhere. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta write that down, and I'll just put it in my purse and take it home. And it literally just flies out of nowhere, and sometimes I'm like, oh my god. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, like, and I'll text it to myself. Like, so it is.
I text stuff. I text stuff to my husband now. It feels less weird than texting to myself. And he'll wake up and he'll be like, "Did you mean to send this to me?" And I'm like, "No, you're just my personal notepad." Right. Cody,
exactly
research and nope, sorry,
okay.
Sarah.
Don't. Oh no, that was it. I was just saying that's it, and don't freak out if it's like that. It's okay.
Right. That's important advice too. Cody, research and organizing your thoughts.
All right. When it comes to research, I kind of just go through like forums and everything on new technology to make sure that it hasn't been invented yet when I try to write an actual near future kind of book, because eventually I want to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to sue Samsung for a foldable wallpaper TV. Yeah, that's mine. That was my idea. It's in my book. Just want to make sure they didn't release it first. But when it comes to organizing, I just use, if it's for clever lines, I use Samsung Notes, and I'm like, oh, that's genius. I'm going to type that in. For story ideas, I try to organize it in Google Docs, and then I always forget to title them. So I'm just like, all right, which one's which? Oh, I got 10 of these. Oh, which spot is it supposed to go into? So I am very unorganized in my writing, much like in most of my life.
Clyde, research and organizing your thoughts when writing.
The rabbit hole is a dangerous place for me because if I start doing research online, by the end of the day, I haven't written anything, but I can tell you all about the combat strategies of the Carthaginians. If I'm not careful, I will go to, I started off on the history of animation characters, and somehow I ended up there. So got to be careful. You got to limit your research time. Set a time limit, set a timer. Have something very specific in mind. And once you've achieved that, if you find something else, which I always do, have like slush file of idea, like a link, just throw it over into a blank document and then name it like new ideas. And you can go back to that and then keep on track. My other system, actually I'm chaotic in my thought process, but my system is more organized than I would have really imagined. Yes, I have all sorts of little notepads, sticky notes like that. I do text myself all the time. But, yeah, there you go. But what I've started doing, I have a primary, and Sarah, you're absolutely right. I have a primary project that I'm working on right now, but I have 2 other secondary projects and a tertiary project, and they each have a different, one is a yellow notepad like that. The other one is a white notepad, legal pad like that. And all the others are different kinds of notebooks, one each dedicated to each thing. So I can go, I had an idea for my unnamed, cannot yet disclose it, anthology project for Stormgate Press. Oh, yes, here's my blue zebra striped notebook. That's where I will write that in there. So that's my system. It's not a great system, but it is what I use. And it does work.
All right. And then you guys in the comments, there are other like writers and like people who just have a lot of great advice talking to each other. If you've got time to scroll through and read that, I don't think I'm going to have time to put all of these great comments up on the screen. So Ty wants to know, is publishing a book scary? This seems like a mean question for me to pick someone to go first, almost like an accusation.
It is terrifying
Hey,
to
Robin.
put your work out there. I will say that. And I write, for a public website every single day. And every time I hit the word publish, just even in an article, I'm like, oh, because the internet is mean and scary. And you have to kind of just get over that. And I mean, especially when you start getting reviews on books, I've had some that were just bizarre and weird and bad. And you just kind of have to, it's kind of weird because as a writer, you kind of have to be a sensitive person, but at the same time, you kind of have to just put it out there in the world, let the world do with it what it will, and don't let it affect anything unless, you're getting some really good critical feedback maybe. But yeah, it's scary. It's scary because, for me, especially with the Zeus Inc. series, there is so much of myself in that character. It's like I'm putting myself out there. I'm making myself very vulnerable. I'm just like naked in the world. And yeah, so it's scary when people read that. And like a lot of my close friends have read the book and they're like, that's you. I'm like,
I had those moments. I had only known you for 2 years where I saw you for a weekend a year and reading it. I was like, is Alex Robin?
Yeah.
Alex is Robin.
And that wasn't intentional, but it's just so my personality and attitude and humor just kind of came out in that character for some reason. And so I'm putting that out there, and people are reading it, and they're basically seeing me, and they don't even know me, and yeah, that's scary.
Who's going next? Is publishing a book scary?
I'll do it because I haven't published a book. I've been included in anthologies. So no, it's not scary at all because I haven't done it yet. But I do feel like I have allies that will help me do it. Because I don't really care so much about, it is a vulnerability, yes. I'm pretty good about shields, about going, okay, this is the character, it's not me. I wrote a horror story over the summer that's just a horrible, bad person. I didn't have any problem putting it out there for people to read because that isn't me. It's just that character. But yes, sometimes even with those kind of characters, you get into areas that you feel vulnerable. So that is always a danger. But my main deal would be how to go about the business end and getting it done in a business-like way and not being taken for a ride financially to get something published if I was going to self-publish it. But I have allies for that now. So that takes a lot of pressure off. When my book is done and I've got it beta read and polished down to what I think is decent, I'm not dreading it like I would have at one time.
All right, Cody, was publishing scary?
No, publishing actually was not scary. Once you actually get it uploaded and everything like that, and you hit yes, it's not all that bad. It is just after the publishing and it's actually out there to the world. You start actually second guessing yourself. What are people going to think? Was this really good? Should I have done that? Oh, is this what people are going to think of me if it's really bad? That's the part that becomes scary. Publishing, not at all. That is quick. That is easy. It's out there to the world. It is everything that goes into your head after it is published.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, you're the last one.
Oh my gosh, yes, I had a mental breakdown before I decided to publish. I was so terrified by everything into my book. There's a whole lot of me in my book, probably like most writers, so I'm terrified to hear feedback. And I got my first 3-star review last week, and I was like, oh my god, my life is ending. But I learned that when you get stuff like that, it's good criticism, and it's to learn and be okay and just say, oh, okay, and it's I read good or bad reviews, and it just helps me to be a better writer, or just say, oh well, that person didn't even read it, they just don't like me. You don't be scared. I mean, to me, I look at it and I'm like, anything you do in art is going to be out there in the public eye. You are putting yourself out there, but you don't want to sit there and be 80 years old and go, why didn't I put myself out there when I was 30 or 25 or whatever? You don't want to be in that position where you're like, God, I should have just done it, not worried about everybody else. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, that is good advice. I really wish I had time to put all these comments up here on the screen, but this is the most recent one that popped up. And Brian's right. Clyde probably based his horrible characters on Brian.
Oh, no. I wouldn't have done that. No, that's not it.
Okay, guys. Well, we have 3 very, very short minutes left, and I still have to plug our charity at the end of this. So does anybody have a very quick parting thought that you want to say? along with where we can find your stuff. I know we covered it earlier, but you're supposed to promote yourselves. Where do we buy your book? What is your parting thought if you have one? Cody. Oh, Clyde raised his hand, actually.
If you want to find out where to get my books or where to follow me on social media, or if you'd like to be kind and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that really helps too, you can find me at Linktree. Wait. Bam! We got it? Yeah!
We got it.
All
that
right.
first letter is an L for anybody who can't see it.
Hang on, there we go. Maybe if I bend it in a little bit. There you go. Go ahead and follow me on there. You'll find my books on Amazon, Kindle, Apple, and Nook.
All right, Clyde.
Okay. www.stormgatepress.com for Pulp Reality 1 and 2. It's also available on Amazon. If you go to the Stormgate Press, you'll see a whole bunch of other books that Stormgate has put out by people like Charles F. Milhouse, and Brian K. Morris has got books in there too. So check us out. Also, Comic Book Spectrum is a YouTube and Facebook show every week, Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. We do 4 comic book reviews a session. It's about an hour and a half long for lifelong comic book fans talking comics. So tune in, and if you can stand to see me live more, there's where you'll find me.
All right, Robin.
Robin-Burks.com, or you can also find me at crossroadpress.com along with some other amazing authors. And they also print a lot of books that are no longer in print. They actually digitize them and put them up for Amazon and everywhere you can buy digital books. And you can find me on Amazon Kobo, Smashwords, iBooks, pretty much everywhere. And Audible, as I mentioned. And I'm actually working on hopefully getting the second book in my series, get an audiobook for that too. But I insist on the same narrator, so it might be a while because she's really busy, but she's awesome.
Right. Sarah, where can we buy your books?
My first book is on Amazon. It's also on Nook, and I'm working to get it on Audibles right now. But I'm most active on Instagram. It's Sapphire Art, SAF, my initials, and IRE Art, Sapphire Art on Instagram. So
all right. Every single one of you, I'm really going to encourage you, drop as many links as you want into the comments so people who are following this, just make it easy for them to shop. I have to drop all of you out of here now. You were a pleasure to work with. Got to plug that charity because we are doing this for the Actors Fund. You guys have a great night. I dropped myself out for a second. Sorry, I just really don't want to forget to thank everybody we need to thank and make sure that we plug the Actors Fund. So here we are. This is a thank you to all of the podcasts that help us get where we were. We could not have put on a huge online event like this without these podcasts. They promoted us. They helped us. It was great. And now